let's continue down the line. I know Alex would be happy about this next team. That's the Mavericks, Minnesota State. Speaking of curious surprises, right, Pat? A lot of chatter around Minnesota State, especially after we talked about before. Mike Hastings going to Wisconsin, actually taking some of the roster with him. But Luke Strand comes in, and I think we need to give Luke Strand some compliments because not only has this team held its own, but they're doing a lot in the recruiting space too. Pat, your thoughts already in the very young Luke Strand era with the Mavericks?
Well, Luke's a good coach, number one, and he had the number one penalty kill in college hockey last year at Ohio State, and he was responsible for that. I think they got off to a good start. They are playing well, and they're carrying a chip on their shoulder. They were picked to finish sixth in the CCHA. They lose a lot of guys. They can rally around that. They can rally around the new coach, and it's a makeover. And so, they're playing hard, and they're going to be right there at the end. Fighting for that CCHA title. I think the CCHA as a whole is down this year a little bit. Even though they lost a lot, they're fighting and they're playing hard, and they're winning some games. So you tip your hat to them, and they still get the good crowds. It's still a tough place to play, and I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and watching with Minnesota State, now granted, probably should have raced this last weekend. What a back and forth it was between them and Bemidji State.
Yeah.
Whoa. Pat, what was the bigger surprise that Minnesota State gave up I think at one point a 3-goal lead, or that Bemidji State scored 7 against the Mavericks?
I think they're both shocked, right? I mean,
yeah.
When I saw, I think 6 in the first period or whatever it was, I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? But sometimes the game develops like that, right? Mm-hmm. And okay, they score 1, well, we got to get 1 back, or they score 2, we got to get 3, and that's how the game kind of goes. And that's what's great about this game, is that it can change in a millisecond, from one team to the other team, to a defensive game, to an offensive game. To your power play not working, to all of a sudden you get 4 power play goals, or whatever the case may be. That's what's great about our game, and that's how the game kind of set out on Saturday.
Yeah, very strange. One guy that's leading the charge offensively for the Mavs is Sam Morton. He's got 10 goals, 13 points. 5-on-5, they're actually holding their own. Power play struggling a little bit at 15%. Pat, you've played obviously at a very high level. As we go through the season, as we know, it's still early, right? Yes, we're in mid-November, but the book is still out on a lot of these squads, even those who are playing well, or vice versa. But really for, the Mavericks, for the power play, special teams becomes more important as the year goes around. Your confidence leveled up, they'll be able to kind of shore up some things on the special teams, because from what I've seen, it's not just the Mavs, but throughout really the CCHA, the special teams are, shall we say, night and day for some squads.
Yeah, well, you don't have the skill level that you do per se in other leagues, so they play differently. But when you get to the playoffs, that 1 power play goal, that 1 shorthanded goal, that 1 penalty kill decides who wins the championship.
100%.
And so, listen, I all these teams work on it. I think specialty teams are pretty cyclical throughout. You always want to have a good penalty kill, and stop your opponent, and be able to connect at least at a minimum a 20% rate on the power play. In some leagues it's, you better be at 25, 30, or else you're going to lose a lot. And that just comes down to skill level. Obviously, you see it, and you see it now, again, Nick, we're talking November, where you're still trying to find the right pieces. You're still trying to find what works, what is in sync with the players that you have, and try to make it work. So again, I think we'll see better numbers in January.
I think so too. And I think Minnesota State too, we just all the turnover, right? It's so
Yep.
hard to develop that chemistry. And that's, I mean, I know for you and I mean, I played the game. It wasn't at a very high level, but you did. I mean, there's something to be said about, not just skill level, but just knowing your line mates and knowing where they're going to be. It's almost instinctual, right? Because when you get to the Division I level, Pat, a lot of things become, I already know without even looking where my right wing is going to be, where my left wing is going to be. It happens that fast. So, is there something to be said about, just figuring things out? Because hockey, especially nowadays, is played such at a fast pace that it becomes less about thinking that process and more just, your body reacting sort of in an instinctual basis.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes you overthink the power play a little bit in terms of, listen, power play to me is you try to create 2-on-1s. You try to get 3, maybe 4 passes and then get the shot. So, sometimes guys try to get a little bit too cute, a little bit too fine. Again, where the majority of the goals scored on the power play from 5 feet in. So you got to get pucks to the net, and then you got to want to get there and find the puck, and then get it back. And so if you're doing those things on a consistent basis, eventually it's going to start to go for you. You're going to know that player A has got it here. He's going to shoot it. I got to get there. You got to find the rebound and go from there. So sometimes I think we try to complicate things a little too much on the power play, and then the players start to complicate it, and then it gets completely out of whack. So, that's something that, that's why you play the season, to go through that and get through it and find what works.